The Mesozoic begins much as the Paleozoic ended, with continued sinistral translation along the continental margin of Baja and Southern California. While South America eventually blocked the southerly progress of continental fragments, subduction accommodated the further translation of oceanic lithosphere, thereby decoupling it from the continental fragments it had been traveling with. Models vary, but here, subduction is initiated against the displaced but now stationary continental fragments. Density-increasing phase changes at depth add a downward pull to the widening slab of subducted lithosphere, until convergence was no longer required to overcome the lithosphere's resistance to bending. Now self-sustaining, subduction deepens and broadens, while flux-generated magma rises, creating a lengthening continental magmatic arc. In this model, the subducted slab breaks into segments, perhaps along a pre-existing fracture zone. Bordering the massive Panthalassa, the subducted lithosphere was especially old, and subduction was correspondingly steep. The strong downward pull on the subducted lithosphere resulted in slab rollback and strong extensional forces in the overlying North American plate. As asthenosphere displaced by the westward migration of the southern slab segment impinged against and partially inhibited westward migration of the northern slab segment. The locus of corresponding arc magmatism temporarily stabilized above the northern slab segment, but migrated rapidly west above the southern slab segment. Upgrowth and erosion of the stable arc segment outpaced extensional subsidence, yielding an ample supply of continental and arc-derived flysch that prograded into various basins within the forearc. Models vary, but this one proposes that as the southern slab migrated west, its influence on the northern slab waned. Now unsupported by the impinging toroidal flow of asthenosphere displaced by the southern slab's rollback, northern slab rollback progressed rapidly across the continental margin, eventually intruding and burying flysch deposits with plutonic and volcanic rocks. Newly created arcs were low and transitory, as the ongoing extension and slab rollback rifted and or deprived them of magma soon after forming. Back arc, intra-arc, and forearc basins received correspondingly little sediment, while the lack of compression at the trench prevented formation of an accretionary wedge. Regional extension became locally overprinted by sinistral shear stress when the Gulf of Mexico opened. As progressively younger oceanic lithosphere arrived at the trench, slab rollback slowed, the locus of magma generation stabilized, and a relatively static fringing arc thickened and grew to become the largely subaerial Santiago Peak volcanics of northern Baja and southern California. Stress transitioned from extension to compression as Pangaea's breakup carried the North American plate westward over younger portions of the Farallon plate. Strain partitioned to the boundary between oceanic and continental lithosphere, were solidified but thermally weakened plutons yielded to the now transpressional stress. Ductile shear in the deeper portions of the resulting thrust and fold thickened welt converted granitic rocks into the orthogneiss which now characterizes the Cuyamaca-Laguna Mountains shear zone. Accelerated convergence and younger, more buoyant lithosphere subducting combined to flatten the subduction angle and shift the locus of magmatism east. Most of the volcanic cover becomes denuded from the magmatic arc and feeds a growing accretionary wedge that now fills the trench. Considerable wedge material is carried inland with the subducting plate, releasing huge amounts of water just east of the Santiago Peak arc. Correspondingly massive amounts of magma are produced by flux melting, forming the giant Posta-type plutons which dominate the peninsular range's batholith. The profound activity of the Mesozoic concludes as an oceanic plateau arrives at the trench. forearc sediment becomes ponded behind the uplifted accretionary wedge, while the subduction angle flattens to cause the uplift and exhumation of the Peninsula Range's batholith and ultimately the complete retreat of arc magmatism from southern and Baja California.